Hello and welcome to Season 3 of Backtracking. I know that this episode was a long time coming, but considering that this is the band that inspired the series in the first place, you would think that I would have done this sooner, but I didn't because I'm a damn fool. Anyway, Defeater, formed in Boston, Massachusetts in 2008, and members have come and gone, but their one constant has been their concept and story. And before you ask, yes, I will be going over the story guide through each album in a future What a Concept episode. I'm going to try my damn hardest to keep spoilers out of this backtracking episode, though, as I'll mostly focus on the music and not so much the concept of the story as much as I'd like to. But that'll come when I'm good and ready. Anyway, without any more fucking around, let's get this on, because Donkey Kong is missed doing this. Why did I say that? I'm not Donkey Kong. On to the episode. We kick things off with their 2008 debut in Travels. Yep, this band is so awesome that they made a full album in the same year that they formed. Released through Top Shelf and Bridge 9 Records, the album easily showcases the band's mixture of hardcore, punk, melodic, hardcore, and a little bit of emo here and there too. And as one would expect from late noughties hardcore, it's abrasive, thrashy, and kind of unusual to listen to. Not in a bad way, but sometimes instrumentals can come so fast it's difficult to keep up with, and it could also help explain why this album is the band's shortest, as it's 32 minutes and 9 seconds long. Luckily, the faster stuff is balanced out with much easier to listen to speeds, even on those same much faster songs, so at least Defeater know who they're trying to appeal to with their music. Oh, and I really couldn't find out anything about producers for this album, but given what I know about their future albums, it's safe to say that it was Defeater themselves or possibly their guitarist and main songwriter Jay Moss. Speaking of the songwriting, it's pretty solid in the debut, with the lyrics conveying the main story well enough in the first few songs. Said story is based around a family living in post-World War II New Jersey, and the first song details the birth of the younger brother of the family, with him being the main focus of this album. Despite all of the band's huge albums focusing on perspectives of different characters, this one is told from multiple points of view, with the band even serving as narrators for the most part, or rather, lead singer Derek does. The fact that they use phrases such as he references a sort of past tense storytelling, with the only times they use words like I, we, me, and my for being when they're actually in character. It's a surprisingly effective technique for storytelling, and it's a good way to speak the story to the listener without switching too fast or too slow, but as easy as that is to listen to, the main story for this album is kind of bleak. Then again, the family does live in New Jersey. I turned super New Jersey there back then after World War II just happened, so it was never going to be sunshine and lollipops and rainbows now, was it? Especially given that the shit that the family goes through, but I'm saving that for What a Concept. Anyway, to the band's performances. Derek Archambault's vocal delivery is on point, and not just screams, but his clean singing on the track Profit in Plain Clothing sounds really great too. Gus Pesci and Jay Moss both provide great riffs that range from aggressive chugging to surprisingly squeaky, but a good kind of squeaky. Max Sparrow provides a good backdrop to things with his bass, also providing a good choke all along. And Andy Wright is pretty damn good behind the kit, providing a good technique that mixes speed and technicality quite well, especially on the faster songs. My favourite tracks on the album are Profit in Plain Clothes, which features Sean Murphy from a band called Verse, Moonshine, Forgive a Forgetter, Debts, and my favourite of the album's closer titled Cowardice. With a good raw feel thanks to the production and a great multi-POV storytelling style, Travels is a ferocious, bleak, and surprisingly insightful debut. I can recommend this one, no problem. Next up is the band's second album, Empty Days and Sleepless Nights. Released in 2011 only through Bridge 9, this time produced by Jay Moss. The reason that the album has such a long title will be explained in due time, but first, random facts. So this album is the band's longest at over 49.5 minutes, and even though the band had a bassist at the time named Mike Perlin, who would still be with the band after this, he wasn't present to record this album, and I haven't been able to find out why. Luckily, the bass was picked up for this album by Jay Moss, as well as former guitarist Gus Pesci. The other new addition on the album is Jake Woodruff on guitar, who is sort of Gus's replacement, even though Gus recorded bass for this album, so I'm kind of confused on that part. Anyway, this album gets its title because it's kind of split up into two parts, with Empty Days covering the first 10 songs of the album and Sleepless Nights covering the last 4. All songs are told from the perspective of the older brother this time around, even going into details about his life after the younger brother left their home. But, as promised, I won't go too much into that, especially because, well, to be honest, this is my favourite album by Defeater. And because of that reason, I feel like I need to save the story for What a Concept, because the story to this is just so damn good, and I can't give anything away without spoiling it too heavily. It's sort of the same way I feel about Spec Ops: The Line, really. Anyway, back to the thing about this album being split into two. Empty Days represents the traditional side of Defeated sound, but Sleepless Nights see them taking a more acoustic route with softer instruments like a violin and cello helping on some of those songs. Due to this, it's actually really well balanced, and it does a great job of not just telling us a new story, a la the Empty Days portion, but giving us some strong background and retelling some of the stuff we've heard so far during the Sleepless Nights portion, in a way that's very rewarding and doesn't really insult the listeners. It also helps because we got a lot more stuff from the older brother than we did from the younger brother in Travels, so not only is it a good storytelling decision, but it's also a very smart one. Even then, were either section of this album just completely gone, then it would still be very well balanced tonally and instrumentally with great storytelling chops either way. There are some moments that made me feel super sorry for the older brother. Not enough to make me cry, but enough to make me feel something. And who knows, if you listen to it yourself, you may even feel the same way. Derek's vocals sound really damn good, with his cleaner singing on the Sleepless Nights portion of the album being a good standout. The guitar work of Jay and Jake sounds really crunchy and riffy, including some high note playing to make a good backdrop to the songs, and the bass work is really solid too, with Jay's double duty working it really well. And Andy's drumming is solid as well, hammering hard on the kit and providing great speed to the breakdowns. My standout songs include Brothers, Dear Father, Empty Glass, White Knuckles, and my personal favourite Defeater song in the album's closer, well, in the Empty Days portion closer, White Oak Doors. Empty Days and Sleepless Nights is a fantastic example of a great concept album. The music and story are so well balanced with each other, with so many great moments and twists that even I wasn't expecting when I first heard it. I can totally recommend this one because it's so damn good. Seriously, listen to it, it's really amazing. We then reached their third album, Let Us Home. Released in 2013, it was also be the band's last album to come out through the Bridge 9 Records label. Now, I'll admit, when I first listened to Defeated stuff in the lead up to their next album, which we'll get to soon, I wasn't too impressed with Let Us Home at first. But then I listened to it again for this episode, and I felt I was judging it way too harshly and comparing it too much to 20 Days and Sleepless Nights. When I listened to Let Us Home again to write about it for this episode, I found myself enjoying it a hell of a lot more. Maybe it's because I looked at it too much from a story standpoint and not a musical one, and for that reason I saw this album as imbalanced. But then I listened to it again, and it was like a huge slap in the face, and I actually really like this album. The production value is the biggest difference, stepping up in just about every way possible, and it's very clear to hear the difference between this and previous albums despite all albums coming out through the same label, and possibly being produced by the same group of people. Anyway, the album story is sort of told through letters that the father of the family sends back home during his time at war, and whilst I did harshly judge this as being lazy and incoherent at first, it took the second listen for me to realise just how much of a fucking idiot I am. It does a great job of telling a story from before the brothers were born, and it even introduces a new character who becomes the focal point for Defeater's next album. Also, good goddammit other such phrases, I love the album cover. It shows various letters and pictures on a table, along with an ashtray full of cigarette butts, and it feels like a throwback to the cover of Travels, which shows the mother smoking a cigarette, and looking down on something. I love that little detail so much, and it might be nerdy of me, but I have to applaud Defeater for that so much, it's just so good. In terms of musicianship, the album is pretty solid. Musicianship, that's a very difficult word to say, with the band generally trying new things. On my first listen, I did think that they were retreading old ground, but on my second listen, I found that they were experimenting with a few new things, and quite a lot of them worked. I mean, sure, the album itself is only a paltry 10 tracks stretched over 34 minutes, but it doesn't take away from the impact. New types of riff are tried by J. Moss and Jake Woodworth, with a good few solos even thrown in too. Jarek fits into his role so well and does a surprisingly good storytelling job as well as having great vocal delivery again. Like Phil still sounds great on the 4th string even though it's toned in a little bit, and new drummer Joe Longobardi fits in really well, and it sounds like he's having fun as well as providing a good hard-hitting style, in comparison to Andy Wright, who was more technical. Standout tracks include Blood in My Veins, No Saviour, No Relief, which uses George Hirsch of the band Blacklisted, Dead Set, and my favourite in the song Rabbitfoot. If I were making this episode back in 2015, I would have totally shunned this album and it would probably be my worst, but instead, I highly recommend it. Brilliant production and storytelling combined with some great experimentation too. It's just a really good solid effort, and if you can find it to listen to, which you can because it's on YouTube, do it. And finally, we reached the band's 4th album in Abandoned. Released in 2015, there are a few differences for this one. First of all, it's the band's first release through Epitaph, and despite having the same lineup since Let Us Home, this album would be the band's last one with Jay Moss before his departure. Still, this is a solid piece of work. I guess now is as good a time as any to mention the fact that whilst I didn't go into this episode blind, the only reason for that is because I knew that I had to listen to the previous albums before Abandoned came out. I came for the story and wound up staying for that and the awesome work that the band has put into it all. Anyway, back to this album. It focuses on a character mentioned in Lotus Home, that character being a Catholic priest who fought in the war with the father of the family. What the priest experiences during the war changes him, making him question his faith and his humanity, considering what he had to give up. Obviously, since he had close ties to the family, he's heard of all the tragedies surrounding them, which further leads him to question God's existence, as well as causing him to become addicted to alcohol. I like this change in tone, I think. Introducing a new character in Lotus Home and then giving him a perspective on when Abandoned was a very smart choice, and the main subject matter of questioning one's belief is brought up really rather well throughout this album. I think that part of that is due to the priest having experienced things that could make him question his faith. You have to remember the man fought in a war, he's seen the deaths of friends and enemies, and maybe even had to kill some friends himself, or enemies. Pardon me. And when he comes back from it and returns to being a priest, all that he gets is more questions than answers. It's a really good storytelling mechanic, especially considering that's a new character. Now, I would talk about more, but that'd be huge spoilers for the main story, which I really want to save for the concepts, even though I did mention tragedies earlier, so yeah. Anyway, up until this point, I know that I've mentioned a lot of it, but I really don't want to give a lot away. Sorry. But yeah, structured well, brilliantly produced, new label change helped a lot, I think. I guess we should move on to the band performances now. Derek's vocals sound a lot cleaner this time around. His screens are improved and diversified a bit too. J&J can still provide great riffs on guitar and guitar work, balancing things out well. Mike's bass sounds good too, adding a good tone to the structure and having a lot more screen time this time around in comparison to Lotus Home. And Joe's drumming has improved a lot with so many great little fills here and there and just, more speed. He's really picked up on speed. My standout songs are Atonement, Divination, Unanswered, Borrowed in Blue, featuring James Carroll of the band Make Do Amend, and probably my favourite, Pillar of Salt. Abandoned sees the band treading on new territory and it pays off really well. No wonder it was one of my favourite albums of 2015. Musicianship, storytelling, production, yes, yes, and yes. I can recommend this album with no problems. So, that's it for this episode. My most favourite album was definitely Empty Days and Sleepless Nights. It's so well balanced with a fantastic story, and it was nice to have a bit of focus on things too. Least favourite might be Travels. I don't hate it, but I feel like if I had to pick one, it would be Travels. I think part of it might be the multiple perspective stuff, but that's not a deal breaker in any case, and as I mentioned, it's good for a first time thing, so I don't really have a lot to complain about, I guess. Oh no, I'm just being weird with it. Like, I feel like it's an obligation to have to pick an album I would not want to listen to, but Travels is still really, really good. It's just, it's my least favourite personally, but I still really, really like it. So. Anyway, this turned out to be a surprisingly positive episode of Backtracking, considering the story behind everything, but we'll get to that at a later date when it comes to what a concept. And nothing else to say except, join me next time. Join me in my next Backtracking episode, because the next video you'll see will be tomorrow, because there's a new UFC card, so... Yeah, my next Backtracking episode, I'm going to cover the Canadian pop punk band, Seaway. That was pop punk, not pop punk. My nose is a bit clogged for some reason. Anyway, as always, sorry for my awkwardness. Thank you for listening. You're awesome. Bye-bye. Take care.